thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Suzanne, how are you?
Good.
Good.
So for those of you guys who don't know out there watching, Matt is an awesome real estate agent and broker. So Matt is the broker for Magnolia Real Estate, which is a St. Charles-based brokerage, but you do stuff all over the St. Louis metro area.
Yeah, we go everywhere. We go as far north as Mark Twain Lake. We also work at Lake of the Ozarks and Columbia Border Realtors as well. So all
really
over the place.
More than the
normal age. That's right.
Area.
We're all over the place.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I feel like, Matt, as we've been, chatting with different borrowers and the market, right now we're in October, November timeframe. Historically, the market slows down a little bit. We've been having people who are just coming to us and saying, hey, what can I do to be proactive with getting my house sold right away? We're still in what I would consider a hot market with stuff still selling within 1 or 2 weekends. But I think, there's proactive things you can do to help make sure that your house, in theory, hopefully sells quickly versus not. So could you maybe share some of your top things you'd recommend for people to do to take advantage of getting a house sold quickly?
Sure. First thing, being a realtor and owning a brokerage, one of the biggest things is finding the right agent, finding the right brokerage for you. And I think that sellers should do that early on. So if they're an investor who's flipping a property or somebody who's thinking about listing their personal home, starting that search early to find the perfect agent for them, for their home and for their area is very important.
How would someone go about doing that? Like, how do you, it's nice to say, oh, find the perfect agent, but what things should they be looking for? What questions should they be asking?
Sure. I think, it's always nice if you have a personal connection to a realtor, but there's a lot of people that don't. Ask around, talk to friends, read reviews, go out and do your research, talk to 1, 2, 3 agents, and really when you interview those agents, talk to them, ask them questions about the specifics with your home and the specifics of your area as well. If I have an agent that's never sold a house at Lake of the Ozarks, you probably want to interview at least a couple so you know that they know that area. That's a completely different market than selling a house in O'Fallon, Missouri. So making sure that they find the right agent that's comfortable with the area, the location, and the type of house that you're selling.
Yep. And I feel like I would also caution people. I heard you say like family member, personal connection. I think that's great if they have one, but making sure to still treat them how you would another agent and still interview them just to make sure they're the right fit, because they might know St. Charles County really well, but if you put them in the city, they don't know what they're doing in South City.
And that's a great point. And the thing about it is that, nobody likes it when your family doesn't use you or your best friend doesn't use you. But if you're not the right fit for that property or for their needs, then it's not going to work out in the long run anyway. And you're going to do them a disservice. So.
Okay, that's great. So tip 1 is make sure to find the right agent who knows your market.
Yeah.
What else do you recommend?
Tip number 2 is once you've hired that agent, bring them into the fold. Let them help you either finish the project, get the house ready. They should be walking that property with you, kind of doing punch lists with you, or at least letting you know what they see, what's going to be called out by buyers as they walk through the home, helping you stage your home, or recommending a great staging company to come in and stage the home. We can't express how important staging is, and we've been in a very hot seller's market for the last couple of years, and we are seeing that continue as long as the house is priced right, staged well, and the product is good. If it's not a good product, people aren't spending the money on it right now, and that's an important factor because money for the last few years has been cheap. You've been able to go out and get a home loan for 3%. And now you're at 7.5% to 8.5%, somewhere in that range. So it's expensive. So you've got to be able to put a product out there that people want to buy, that's priced accordingly, and you need your agent alongside of you to figure that out.
Yeah, I think that's so many people think, well, I don't need to bring my agent in until the project's done. And I think just being proactive with it, having those conversations. And agents are going to have a different perspective too, because they're going to want to sell the house. They're motivated to sell the house fast. So they'll think of things and hopefully help point out little details or even make, sure your finishes look nice.
Sure. And that could be, as you're picking out the final finishes, maybe it's a light fixture or a faucet. Maybe it's, do you do an accent wall, when you're doing your final paint? All of that stuff can play into it. And what you may think is beautiful, the public may not, or your agent may have a difference of opinion. And it's not that we don't like what your style is, but we also know what's going to sell. And so we want to make sure that we're putting that best product out there and matching the product to the price point.
Yep.
I think that's where so many people miss the mark, is because they put up a great product, but it's not at that $50,000 higher level that they thought it was. And so having that agent in the mix with you from the beginning, or at least at the end of the project there, is good, so that you can plan accordingly.
Yep. So I think that I just think it's really important for people to hear that, because so many people just really don't. And I think the other part I want to just really emphasize is making sure they're putting in the right finishes for the right product, so that they don't think like, oh, I'm going to save a bunch of money on these materials, but the materials are crappy, or it's out of date. Like back, a year or two ago, everyone had gray floors.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see gray floors anymore. So just, using your agent for stuff like that.
Absolutely. And the agent should also be providing you good comps that are out there. And so what your product finish is compared to another similar product finish that's out there is going to be very important, because not every house is created equal, and not every finish is either. And so if you're out there trying to sell something at $300,000, but the finishes dictate more of a $250 price range, your product's going to sit, and you're going to have higher holding costs, and you're going to have higher days on market, which in the long run could lose you money.
Yeah.
So again, I go back to the pricing.
Yep.
Pricing is going to be so huge in this market right now.
Yeah.
What we were seeing over the last, several years is you could throw a dart at a dartboard and hit a price and probably get it, or get over that, or somewhere in the middle. We're not seeing that now. We're seeing that if the product, it doesn't match the price, and for the area and the location, and the comps that are out there, it's not moving. And that price point's going to be huge. And so again, it go back to when you're interviewing agents, don't always go with the agent that says, I can get you the highest price. Yeah, we all want the highest price, but at the end of the day, if I tell you $350 and I can't sell it for $350, what good am I doing you? So making sure that you've got solid facts on those comps, and the pricing is on point. That it's crucial right now, especially coming into the wintertime. Because you're going to have people that they're already being picky because of interest rates, and we're going to see a little bit more inventory hit the market, just because it's going to sit for a little bit longer, and you got the holidays, so it's a tougher time to sell houses, but if you do it right and you've got the right people in your corner, you still shouldn't have an issue.
So what piece of advice do you have for the flipper out there who, they go into a project and they think all day long, this is a $200,000 house. That's what they're doing, their finishes. That's, how they're operating through their flow. And then, the house next door is sold by another flipper and it's listed at 200, sells, 40, 50 grand over ask, which is, still happening in this market. So they think, oh, I want to list mine at 240 or 250.
Yeah.
What piece of advice would you give them?
Don't do it. And it's simple. Because the buyers are still in that mindset that they're going to have to go in and fight for these houses, and they're going to have to go in over asking price and waive all this stuff and give up this stuff. And we're still seeing that in some cases, but not in every case. If you look at a subdivision and it's a $200,000 subdivision, hands down, but one or two people have gotten 230, 240, 250, that's spectacular. And if you list at 200 and you create that buzz, you'll probably get it too, or close to it.
Yep.
If the finishes are the same, and that drive is still there from the buyers. Yeah. But as we move into the holidays, that push from all those buyers is going to drop a little bit, and you're still going to have plenty of people out there wanting to buy the house. Yeah. But if you put it out there at 240 or 250, and people think, oh man, I got to go in 10, 15 over that, it's not worth it. And they're not exactly. They don't even show up to the house. Whereas if you started at the 200 and you've got 25 people that want it, competing over that house is going to get you that higher price. And so it's a bit of a dance, and you got to be willing to listen to the professionals and follow their advice to get that higher price.
Okay. I have another just question for you as we're talking. I'm thinking about, so another thing I frequently hear people say is, oh, well, I went ahead and I got my license so I can save on commission.
Mm-hmm.
And so they decide, like, oh, I'm going to just go and list the house myself.
Sure.
And they are not an experienced
Mm-hmm.
agent. But they think that they're going to save money by listing it. And I have a few people right now who've done this, and the houses are just sitting.
Mm-hmm.
What piece of advice would you give to someone who maybe has their license but isn't a frequent user of their
Sure.
real estate license? What would you encourage them to do?
So if you're going to go out and get a license, you need to be able to follow it up with the education and the knowledge that you're going to need to do the job. And just because you have a piece of paper that says you can sell a house doesn't mean you're good at it.
Or you
And
should.
it doesn't mean you should, or it doesn't mean that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And, the last few years, you've been able to drop a sign in the front yard and the house kind of sells itself. However, that doesn't prepare you for the negotiations you have to do on the inspection side of things. And also, the other harder part about it is if you're a flipper and you get your license just to sell your own stuff, one thing that people don't take into consideration is the emotion that goes into selling a property like this.
Yeah.
It is not easy to sell your own home. Number one, the buyer or the buyer's agent automatically assumes you're going to give up more information, that you're going to know more stuff, you're going to, and you've got this emotional attachment to this house that you've worked really hard on. And now you got somebody that comes in and either beats you up on price or inspections or whatever. So there's all this emotion going into it as well. I can't tell you how many agents that work at Magnolia have other agents list their properties just because.
I'm one of them.
Right, I know, and it's an emotional roller coaster.
Right.
And if you're not well versed in how the process works and how all of the contingencies work and all the ins and out of those contracts, and you get somebody that comes in with a buyer that's been doing this for 20 years and knows that contract backwards and forwards and every in and out, you are going to get run over in that deal, whether you like it or not.
You're almost losing money at that point because you're trying, in theory, you're going in to save money.
Yeah.
But if you're in that situation, I feel like most of the time a quality agent for me pays for themselves by listing it because they can just list it better.
And it's the fact that those agents have been there, they've done that.
Yeah.
And they've got the resources, they've got the tools, they've got the backing to go in and fight for the better contract, negotiate a better contract, negotiate better inspection results, and get the deal done at a higher level. And everybody's got to learn somewhere. If you go out and get licensed, hopefully you are out there selling houses for not just yourself, but other people. And so you're learning as you go. And if you do go out and get your license, make sure you find a brokerage that is going to provide the training and the knowledge you need to stay on top of things. There's a lot that goes on in our industry on a daily basis that agents have no clue about.
Yeah.
And it affects everything that we do as agents, that you do as a hard money lender, that our clients do as buyers and sellers. And if they don't know the changes that are going on, it opens themselves up for lower prices, worse contracts, and also liability. And you don't want to be the liable factor in your own deal.
Yeah. Well, I think that's perfect. I really appreciate all the time that you've spent with us today. I hope that you guys watching are just thinking about the real estate agent you currently have or a real estate agent you want, and just make sure you're picking the right one. You're having them involved with it, and you're actively communicating, and you're listing it right.
Yeah, and I would say as you're out there interviewing those agents, interview 1, 2, or 3. Take the time to actually sit down and talk to them, and make sure that those agents are explaining their process to you, what their timelines look like. You should not be finishing a project on Thursday and listing it on Saturday morning. You should make sure you have professional pictures being taken, that you've taken the time to stage it. Rushing to get something on the market does nothing but hurt you in the long run. And so when you interview agents, talk to them about their process, talk to them about what they've done before, who they use for photography, who they use for staging. Make sure that you're having those conversations with them, and then also make sure that they're explaining the paperwork to you that goes along with that listing agreement, making sure that you understand the commissions, making sure that you understand how the buyer's agents and the selling agents are going to be paid. Because there's a lot of people that go out there and they just look for an agent and they say, oh, we've got one and we're done, and we just sign whatever they put in front of us, and that's it. And they don't really understand it. And so take the time to get to know your agent, make sure they're explaining their process, their paperwork, all of that stuff, because that all goes into it, and that's going to affect your bottom line.
Yeah. And I think making sure you're putting your best foot forward too for those professional photos. How many times do I look at professional photos and see paint cans sitting in the corner, outlet switches not on?
You always get what you pay for.
Yes.
And so, nobody wants to pay the most, but nobody wants to pay the least. Do your research and make sure you're comfortable with who's being used in your process, because you do have a say in who takes the pictures and who does the staging and that kind of stuff. And so those need to be conversations that you're having with your agent.
And when those things are occurring.
100%. Yeah. Making sure there's a solid timeline in place is very important.
Yeah. And not last minute being like, oh, the house is ready. I'm ready for photos tomorrow. That's not helpful either.
Right.
Just that active communication back and forth.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Matt, for all your time. If you guys are interested in trying to find an agent and don't know where to start, definitely reach out to Magnolia Real Estate. Matt Becker can definitely help match you with a couple of the right agents in your area. And we just appreciate all of your time. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for having me, Suzanne.
Yeah.
Take care.